Right, good evening everybody. Thank you for coming along, and I will stand still so I'm in front of the mics. We've also got a live stream going out tonight, not via Facebook, but obviously via Teams for those employers that can't attend. I know that getting here has been a bit of a challenge in terms of traffic, so like I say, there may be a few stragglers joining us later on, and equally I've had a couple of people saying they need to sneak off early, so that's understandable as well. We will be recording the whole session anyway. Simon, my colleague up the back, is there along with the audio and the video, and we will be sharing it all with you. Just by means of introductions, I'm joined tonight by two of my colleagues, Nicola Tabben from OneFile, who's going to take you through OneFile, which is our new electronic portfolio system for apprentices, and indeed Jeff Stewart, our Director of Student Services, who is going to take you through our safeguarding requirements around apprentices. All right, so thank you. Do you want to take a seat for a minute? Okay, great. So this evening's proceedings hopefully shouldn't take us too long. I know we publicised an hour and a half. I'm anticipating we should be done within the hour, but at the end of the session there will be an opportunity to speak to some of our curriculum teams if you haven't had that opportunity already, and equally Jeff, Nicola and myself will also be around to speak to you. The agenda was shared, and these are some of the points that we're aiming to cover tonight. Obviously, like I say, meeting all of the teams, and I was hoping to introduce you my new team. Unfortunately, Paul Curtis, my new apprenticeship manager, has fallen ill today, but I am joined by Sonia, and Sonia's been greeting you. Sonia Domar has been greeting you on the way in. Sonia is my apprenticeship administrator. I've got the wrong glasses on, so I can't see into the audience. Sonia, where are you? Over there. Right, thank you. So we'll be covering quite a broad agenda this evening. Okay, in addition to Sonia, obviously, we've also got Kathy. Kathy's out there somewhere. I don't think Jane's with us tonight. So Kathy looks after APR, so apprenticeship progress reviews with our apprentices, which is about the wraparound, and I'll also explain that in the presentation. What I just want to touch on before we start, obviously, when we talk about curriculum as educators, I link this to the Guernsey Institute, the Guernsey Apprenticeship, and TGI, as a whole. But obviously, our curriculum tent is quite broad. I'm not going to read that to you. I'll just give you a minute to flick through that and read through that. And when we're thinking about curriculum, it's to ensure that what we deliver to your apprentices actually meets your needs and indeed the needs of the island. From a curriculum planning point of view, my colleague here, Jane Fears, is somewhere. Where's Jane? In the back there. So again, Jane obviously looks after business development, and obviously part of that is our curriculum engagement with the sector, and each sector should have a couple of curriculum engagements per year. We're actually reviewing the curriculum, assessing its suitability, determining if there are other elements that we need to add to that curriculum. So for argument's sake, motor vehicle, I know we've got a couple of our motor vehicle lecturers on way. I don't think they're here yet. They are here. Well, hey, awesome. Welcome, Ian and Jimmy. But actually, we bolted in electric vehicle training alongside that curricula. And if we think about, other curriculum areas, we put in bespoke qualifications as well. Any questions on the intent? Does it sound like it's reasonable? Feedback from the audience? Anything we should add? There's not much collaboration going on at the minute, guys. Okay. Anyway, hopefully it's self-explanatory. That explains our pitch. Now, what I just want to touch on, I know some of my colleagues have already seen this. Obviously, this has come from the World Economic Forum. And this statistic relates to the impact of artificial intelligence on roles. And what we're saying here is 44% of workers' core skills are expected to change in the next 5 years. Fortunately, for our apprentices, I believe that obviously AI will have a limited impact. If we think about vocational roles, obviously invariably it's a hands-on skill, it's learned, it's a mastery, and unfortunately, or fortunately, whichever way you want to look at it, robots and AI can't replicate that yet. So I think apprenticeships stand in a very strong position for the future, and in terms of, and obviously what we need to do though is equip our apprentices with the knowledge, skills and behaviours, and indeed the attitudes, and we call them BACS, behaviours, attitudes, knowledge and skills, that they need for the future. Some of the skills on the rise, and again, looking for audience feedback, would you concur with these things? Do you think creative thinking is a valuable attribute? Do you think that the WEF analysis is a true representation of what our apprentices need? just cast your eyes over that. Any comments? Yes, no? Yeah? Okay. Right. So in terms of our headlines for 23-24, as it stands at 3:05 this afternoon, we've got 311 apprentices on roll across 11 pathways. The apprenticeship has been in existence for 75 years across 23-24. So again, it's got that longevity on Ireland. It's got that respect from all of the sectors, and we actually value it. We've currently got just over 109 starts, so 109 new apprentices across the 19 pathways. And every apprentice on every programme, on every course, on every level has 3 apprentice progress reviews per year and should have 3 tripartite reviews. Now, obviously, the tripartite review is something that's new. It's something that we're working on and we're still embedding fully. We know that we launched it last year. We haven't quite got it embedded fully yet, but what we're going to do is obviously through the use of OneFile, through reviewing the tripartite review process, we're going to try and streamline that. And in our employer engagement with the sector last year, 100% of employers said they value the communication from the college. We know that we switched off termly reports or mid-year reports and end-of-year reports, and actually we've gone over to using new systems. Last year we had a halfway house where we had Pro Portal, where you could look at your apprentice's timetable, you could look at the comments on that apprentice, and obviously this year we're hoping with the launch of OneFile across phase 1 and phase 2 teams, where obviously you can view their tracking in real time, and indeed obviously we're going to engage with that tripartite review process. Our apprenticeships range in 1 to 5 years in duration, cover levels 1 to 4, are delivered invariably over 36 weeks per year, but obviously we've got different modes of delivery. So last year, for argument's sake, we struggled with plumbing. We couldn't get a tutor. We managed to get a tutor from overseas. And then what we did, we actually launched on a block release program where we delivered 7 by 5 day blocks, 7 by 1 week blocks to compensate for the lost learning or whatever. And they actually achieved in that time frame. That model of delivery was quite widely accepted and valued by the apprentices and employers, despite some initial reticence. And as a consequence of that, we're pushing that forward into the second year of the programme this year as well. Current statistics, again, we've got a report in terms of our statistical achievement, and we do that through a self-evaluation reporting cycle and also something called qualification achievement rates, and that allows us to benchmark against equivalent jurisdictions and in part the UK. Currently, or last year, we were sitting on a 79% achievement rate. We've been doing some data cleansing through the course of today, so to enable us to report, we've dropped ever so slightly, but we're sitting around 77% as at 4 o'clock this afternoon. Now, if we think about that, that is achievement over the full duration of an apprenticeship programme. So in some cases, okay, 1 year, 20% drop off, but actually in the case of electrical, which is our longest apprenticeship, a 5-year programme, actually retaining 80% of the apprentices at start, or indeed carpentry that's 4 years, is a good statistic. And actually, if we're comparing ourselves to the UK's, there's only one, sorry, excuse me, not plural. If we're comparing ourselves to the UK, we are doing particularly well. English and Maths is part of the apprenticeship, and I know Darren asked me a question about English and Maths. We're going to touch on that later on because, of course, some of you will have noticed that your apprentice might be attending vocational study 1 day of the week, and then obviously they're moving on to English and Maths, or they're being expected to attend a separate morning or whatever, and that is just primarily down to the metrics. We've got 311 apprentices as stated here. About 150 of those, so roughly 50%, need to access either English or Maths provision, and unfortunately we can't necessarily fit them in on the day that they're normally in college, because we've also got other factors to consider in terms of other provision types, so 14 to 16 and 16 to 22 provision, who also need to not so much access English and Maths, but have certain times when they attend. Okay. So, hopefully you've all used the college website, and again you've used the employer portal there. The key information for employers can be found on the website. So again, any problems navigating to that, or has anybody got any feedback? Any employers? You're very quiet, employers. Oh, that's reassuring. That's disconcerting for me, but obviously the key information is there, so feel free to have a look. Just Google guernseycollege.ac.gg and it will take you to there. There's our starts for this year, a fairly broad distribution. Good starts in built environment. I'm pleased to say that obviously we've recommenced the level 4, the HNC, so that will give apprentices, obviously it gives that apprentices that progression pathway from level 3 to level 4. And obviously we're looking at the HND provision moving forward, and hopefully we can get sufficient numbers to actually rerun the degrees that we've run successfully in the past. Carpentry and joinery, quite a large number of starts last year. We're down on what we had last year. Last year we started with 30. This year we're down at 14, and the team are going to cringe, but I know that we could probably squeeze in a few more. So if there are employers saying that you're still looking for carpentry apprentices, we can take a couple more. So please contact myself or indeed Tom Nasovo as programme leader. Culinary skills, again, unbelievable recovery. We've worked quite hard with the Guernsey Hospitality Association, and that's resulted in a significant number of starts this year, both in culinary skills and indeed our hospitality level 3 provision. Early years is bobbing along. They infill with other apprentices. That's like a roll on, roll off. Electrical, linear delivery, again, large numbers in electrical, which have bounced back from post-COVID. I think post-COVID we had a group start of 5. We honoured that because it was supporting part of the island's recovery, and it's great to see that sector has really bounced back. Fabrication, we've got infill. I'm not going to go over everything line by line because we'll be here forever, but you've got an oversight there. What I will say, however, is where we've got lower numbers, fab and welding, we infill with other groups. Hairdressing, obviously in that sector at this moment in time, we've had to delay the start because we've only got 4 apprentices on programme, and we're looking at ways of whether we can infill that or deliver the curriculum in a different way with the curriculum team. So we're working on solutions for employers, Maxine, which you're aware of, yeah? Okay. Motor vehicle, fair enough, office administration is a new apprenticeship, and I'm going to cover that later on. That's a career start apprenticeship, and these guys have started with us. They're working full time, and then they will go on to, they'll be looking for employers. Sorry, you've gone up in numbers. I got these off the MIS system this afternoon, Lucy. So if you've had an enrolment this afternoon, okay, it's great to hear that's increasing. So that apprenticeship career launch, they're studying with us full time until February to develop core skills that they need to enter the industry. Between now and February, we'll be seeking employer sponsors to allow those apprentices to get gainful employment, and then from February they will go into a normal apprentice mode of attendance at 1 day a week, and obviously through an employer. Other than that, obviously retail and retail level 2 and retail level 3, they are running at this moment in time, but actually with low numbers again, we've had to delay the starts of those provisions, and trail no problems with 9. Right, okay, this is primarily for employers that are new to the scheme, and for those of you that are old hands, and I'm pleased to say that the majority of employers do actually re-employ apprentices, so we've got a lot of repeat business. Obviously, you need to be registered. You can fill out that registration form online. We carry out the employer checks. The apprentice needs to have completed an application online, and this year what we've done is we've actually revised the application process, so rather than being 2-step, it comes straight into our centralised systems, and it makes things obviously more seamless. I've already touched on the need for curriculum sector reviews, and you'll be invited to 2 of those per year, and that's for every sector, whether it be electrical, whether it be carpentry and joinery, whether it be built environment, whether it be trowel, whether it be hair and beauty, and indeed beauty moving forward, and indeed culinary skills. So every sector will have that engagement. We are in the process of reviewing our apprenticeship agreement, and obviously when an apprentice is signed up, you've signed up as an employer, completing the written agreement as services contract. We will then issue an apprenticeship agreement, and that is the tripartite agreement that exists between us, the training provider, the employer, and indeed the apprentice. And of course, if an apprentice is under 18, it will also need to be signed by their parents. Again, just touching on the health and safety legislation, from a compliance perspective, obviously you are responsible for the apprentice's health and safety whilst they're in the workplace. and obviously when the apprentice is in training with us, we look after the health and safety of that individual whilst they're at the college. Obviously we've touched on tripartite reviews and we've touched on sector bodies, so I'm not going to repeat myself there. We will continue to use ProMonitor. So ProMonitor is one of our central systems. We use that for recording information around apprentices, and every lecturer in the room has the opportunity to a little tick box on ProMonitor that says make visible to the employer. Obviously, if that comment is relevant to the apprentice's progress, obviously, it can be viewed by you, and as an employer, you would come in through Pro Portal and you could obviously view your apprentices' comments and indeed their timetable. Now, touching on Pro Portal, I know there's been a couple of comments from employers saying they can't see their apprentices' timetable. We're working with the MIS team at this moment in time, so that's our data team, our management information team, because some information has not been rolled over, and I don't think apprentices have been imported, so we're hoping to have a fix for you over the next week or so, all right? But I'll keep you posted. And obviously Pro Portal, you can see the apprentices' attendance and indeed their timetables. So if you've got any queries over attendance, check in Pro Portal first, but equally, if not, come back to apprenticeships@gcfe.net and we can give you a breakdown of registration marks. Right, okay, that's my intro done. Any questions so far, folks? If I can hand over to Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Chris said earlier, don't worry, I'll warm the crowd up for you. So thank you for that. I won't ask you any questions. Okay, going to run through some safeguarding and the measures that we have in place for safeguarding. Safeguarding for the apprentices whilst they're with us, but also beyond that and making sure they understand how to keep themselves safe as well. My role is that I'm designated safeguarding lead for the college in the role of Director of Student Support, but then Ben is our Student Support Manager and he's our Deputy Designated Safeguarding Lead. Feel free to take a screenshot of that information if there is anything you wanted to run by either of us in terms of a question, whether it's relevant to the college or just for yourself in terms of safeguarding. More than happy to take any questions, so don't mind that information being shared. In terms of our safeguarding team, these posters are up all over the college sites. And it outlines our wider safeguarding team that we have. I think I've got a pointer. Have I got a pointer? Yeah, we go. So we've got an email address, which is support@gcfe.net, which anyone could just drop an email into if they've got a question that's relevant, or if a young person or any student within our care is identifying that there might be an issue of some sort or needs to identify that they wanted to sort of self-refer for any help, they could drop an email into us. In terms of students we have at the college, our youngest student is 14, our oldest student last academic year was 84, so it's very much a community environment and we need to make sure everyone that comes in is kept safe. And this is our wider team, so myself and Ben, and then the rest of the people on this poster are part of our progress coach team, and they operate as first line responders in terms of safeguarding, and also they are put in place to support a caseload of students that might be identified as requiring that support. And historically, we haven't always had a large number of apprentice students that are under the caseload of a progress coach, but already this year we've had a couple of students that have self-referred and have had a conversation, and also some that, based on the transition information that we have about them, we've identified that they might need some initial support. That support for some is just day one, stepping over the threshold for the first time. It could be adjusting to a social situation within a college environment. It could be down to mental health concerns. It could be they've got support from external agencies. And with some, it's just because they need someone to help them get a little bit more focused on how they need to operate in order to be successful. So the safeguarding team are all in place. And the posters are just one example of how we make sure that safeguarding is at the forefront of what we do. Another is that on all of our IT systems, when a student or a member of staff has logged onto the system, this screen is the wallpaper that is on there. So again, it's all of the information that someone would need in case they need to get hold of someone from a safeguarding point of view, or if they need to notify us that someone else that they know or seen or have spoken to might need some support. Further to that same imagery is on the back of all student and staff ID cards as well. So there's a constant reminder there. Lots of staff now checking. Is it? There we go. Okay, so that information is on the back as well to make sure that, again, it's accessible. And in terms of ID, we make sure that all staff and students have got visible ID when they're on campus, because that's obviously another safeguarding measure, because we've got 3 different campus buildings. We need to make sure that we know who's on site. And a really good example of that is in relation to the fact that we train all of our staff in terms of safeguarding. I was running a safeguarding course last week, and we had a break in the session. It was in the evening. It was on the Delancey campus, and during the break, one of the people from the course had a little wander off around the building, and a caretaker grabbed them, not physically, but brought them back to the room we were in and said, "Is this gentleman with you? Because he's wandering around the campus and he hasn't got a staff or student ID on." Okay, so really good example of why we do that, because we also have students that arrive on campus at maybe 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. Maybe they've been kicked out of the house by parents, maybe they haven't got anywhere else to go. So a caretaker being aware of safeguarding principles is really, really important to us. So a really wide team of people that are involved in making sure that staff and students are safe. This is the sign-in app that we have, so we make sure that alongside everyone being visible in terms of their status on campus, whether they're a visitor, contractor, etc., we also make sure that staff and students are signing and visitors signing in and out of the campus as they come in. I know there was a manual sign-in for you today, because when we've got larger numbers of people, we don't want necessarily a big queue at the machine, but this allows us to make sure we can track who's on campus when, even if it's just from a fire point of view, but it's also from our point of view, we might have someone vulnerable that we need to know where they are at all times. So it's a good way of checking. Okay, so I've mentioned some of these already, but in practice, all of our staff are level 2 trained. So the level 2 safeguarding and child protection training is undertaken. That's a 2-year validity, and that is for all of our staff that are front facing. And that's a remit from education in terms of front facing. What we take that as is not just the staff that are stood in front of a group of students, it's all of our staff, as I've already mentioned, all of our caretaking teams, our technicians, our invigilators for exams, all of our supply staff. We make sure everyone is aware of the principles of safeguarding to make sure it's a blanket approach to that. We've got our student support team in place, but obviously student support is the remit of all members of staff at the college, and we also make sure we impart a multi-agency approach to what we do. So there's a lot of signposting that goes on for the young people that we work with to make sure that we're getting the appropriate help and guidance for them. In some cases, a progress coach might accompany a young person to a medical appointment because it's something that they need to go to, but they're concerned about going, and it's not something they want their parents necessarily involved in at that stage. In others, it's a referral to CAMS or to adult mental health, etc. Okay. IAG is another important part. That stands for information, advice and guidance. So we're making sure that not just from a safeguarding point of view, but we're making sure that all young people are educated, all our students are aware that we've got appropriate advice and guidance. And that is either coming from the lecturers that deliver their course of study, from our support staff, from the wider teams. Chris has already mentioned the APR, and which is the Apprentice Progress Review. And then we've also got PDP, which is our professional development programme. And for apprentices, that works slightly different to our full-time students, and I'm going to mention that in a little bit more detail in a moment. Due diligence takes place with the setup checks to be, as an employer, to be part of the Guernsey Apprenticeship. And then also we have with you guys the mentoring that's happening in the workplace visits through the tripartite reviews, and then also raising awareness events like today. So last year when we did this, there were a couple of employers that contacted me post the event, and I just had a few questions to bounce back and forth in terms of things that were relevant to their workplace. Okay, so really important that we have these opportunities to touch base with everyone. Okay, so I've seen how crowd participation has gone so far, so I'm not going to ask you to answer these, okay? But I just want you to give some consideration to these 2 points, okay? Because I think these are realistic things that could be happening within sort of your organisation that you've got. Not necessarily, but in context, there could be. So if you had a 16-year-old apprentice who's out on a job with a 35-year-old employee, you as the employer have got a duty of care over the fact that you've got a situation there where you've got an adult and a child, okay, and they're within your employment. So it isn't saying you can't send a 16-year-old employee out with a 35-year-old employee, but it says you've got to be aware of that situation, and there might need to be some training and support for both the people involved in that situation, because it could be for that 16-year-old, that's a really, really challenging environment for them to be in, because they could have maybe an experience from their childhood that means they're very wary of sort of adults that they don't know, and they could be on week one of the job. Okay? Now, I know you'll have measures in place, but it's just something for a consideration that may not have sort of crept into your mind before. And then the other scenario, where you've got an employee who's working in a household of some sort, they're working alone, and at 3:30, the 12-year-old son or daughter of the household returns home on their own, okay, which is quite a normal occurrence. You know, Guernsey's a nice, safe place, which is great, but that could be quite a normal occurrence. So to safeguard the young person and to safeguard your employee, again, there needs to be an awareness of that situation so that nobody is vulnerable in that situation. Okay. And my favourite bit of my safeguarding course I deliver is when you ask the question about what's the legal age that you can leave a child at home on their own. So all the people who've been on my safeguarding training, that's great. So there's not a legal age. So it will be no good as an employer saying, well, look, if I've got someone working in your house, you can't leave a child on their own in the house. Okay, so it's not a legal age, but there is a legal responsibility to make sure you're not putting your child at risk. Okay, so being aware of who's in the household, and hopefully in that situation the parents had told the child that there's going to be someone working in the house, but it is something that you need to consider. Okay, and all we're doing with this is making sure that we're raising awareness in terms of these things. Okay, so moving sort of through from safeguarding into the support side of things, assessment at entry is something that encompasses a range of different things. So when a student comes to us, we look at their initial assessment. So we'll initially do some assessments. That might be through their English, their maths, it could even be through their ability with IT. Depends on the context of the course that they're studying. And they might also do some diagnostic testing, again, around their English, maths, and in relation to their vocation. Further to that, we have our lucid assessments. A lucid assessment is a test that identifies things like processing speed, comprehension, understanding. Okay, so you might have someone that you've given us some instructions to and expect them to carry out the task, but to them, because of their dyslexia, for example, they're not seeing what you see. Okay, you might have someone who's dyscalculate and they're trying to work out some measurements you've given them, but to them, the numbers are just blurring in front of them. Okay, so they need some strategies and measures, and the lucid assessments allow us to identify that and then look at, for all of these things, what are we going to do about the support? That includes the vocational skill scans that take place, and it may be that the outcome of a vocational skill scan, which is hard to say, so I won't say it again, is something that we look at and go, actually, this young person isn't suitable to undertake this course at this time. Or it could be we need to identify the support that's needed to then review on a regular basis whether or not this is the right course of study for them. Because they could absolutely love what they're doing in terms of the vocation, but actually at this stage in their life, they might not be ready for it. Okay, so all of these initial assessments, all of these assessment at entry facts lead us through to looking at what support is needed. And sometimes the support for a young person is to say, this isn't for you at this time. Again, leading on from that, we've got CEIAG, which is our Careers, Education, Information, Advice and Guidance. And part of that process of identifying what support is needed is to make sure that the Careers, Education, Information, Advice and Guidance is relevant, appropriate and suitable for the young person. It isn't suggesting that we're going to advise the people that work for you to go and look for a different job somewhere. Okay, it's about them understanding how they can make themselves more valid an employee for you within your organisation, how they can improve their own employability skills, and English and maths ties into that in a major way. Okay, and the example I'd use is from a couple of years ago, where we had a young lad who'd been taken on by States Works, and they were going to be doing a lot of groundwork and mowing lawns, etc. But after a couple of years and really showing aptitude, they were promoted into a position where they had a bit of a supervisory responsibility. But their English ability didn't even allow them to put pen to paper very effectively and write a report or leave some notes for an employee. Okay, so that was an example where their progression wasn't being halted by their vocational ability, it was being halted by their ability to just have their basic levels of literacy in place. Okay, so we make sure that their understanding of employability skills is key. Now, I know what would happen if I put a big QR code on. Some of you would attempt to scan it, and because this is relevant for students and not necessarily externals, you wouldn't be able to. So I put a little hat over it. I tried to put Chris's face on there, but then. No. So this is a QR code that's available, and if a student was to click on this QR code, and they might be guided towards it by Kathy or Jane when they do their apprentice progress reviews, or a member of staff might guide them towards it. So the example could be that one of the lads in the workshop is talking about how things are pretty tight and I'm struggling a little bit at the moment and things aren't brilliant. And it could be that they're just signposted, and it could be they were talking about relationships at home aren't great. Okay, struggling with things at home. So they could be signposted towards this site, and they'd be able to go in and get access to resources, a little bit of further reading, and it may be that member of staff would also put a referral into our progress coaches to touch base with them. Okay, so it's just a platform which allows all of our students, whether they be full-time, apprentice, part-time, etc., to access relevant information and for us to signpost to make sure that they're supported. It isn't just in relation to sort of personal development, it's also the employability skills as well. And again, it could be something that we're guiding our apprentice students towards to make sure that they feel supported and it's relevant and it allows them to be a better employee for you guys as well. Okay. All right. Bit whirlwind. I will ask the question now. Has anyone got any questions? Okay. The email address is on there. If something did pop up, it's hopefully fairly easy to remember. And I'll be around at the end if you've got any other questions that you'd like to ask. I think I'm handing over. Thank you. Nope.
Okay, so this is your new system, OneFile, and I'm just going to talk you through the employer, line manager, employer supervisor view. If you already haven't had your login details as an employer supervisor within the workplace, you will be receiving them. Within the login, which you can see on the screen here, you can only see your apprentices that are assigned to you. You do not see anybody else's apprentices other than your own. This is just an example that we're using this evening. So Chris mentioned about the, the intent. What are we going to do? What do we intend to do? The curriculum. Within OneFile here, we can then look at the implementation and the impact that what we do from a curriculum point of view with our learners. You can then see the progress within the system. As long as the system is up to date, you will be able to see your apprentices' progress. When you first log in, you'll see who you are logged in as, and you've got some information underneath your name. So if I just click underneath the name, you can change your profile, you can put your pictures in, and you can change the appearance of what the screen looks like. So, we talked about dyslexia, we've talked about students with having, mental health issues. Some learners, yourself, might want to change your appearance. You are in control of everything that you see within OneFile. So you can put your sunglasses on and you can change the screens to help you work within the system, and at any point you can just change that back. You can change your font settings, and if you're really good at line manager employer and you're logging in, you can actually put your out of office on when you are not available. Okay, so that's what we see underneath our name. If I click the home button, it takes me back to this page here. The system works as a tripartite tool. You've got your tasks sitting at the top, and you've got your messaging system here, and it's the same down the left hand side here. Tasks and messages are exactly the same. So the way the system works, we complete a tripartite review. The training provider, the college, would do their bit, the apprentice would do their bit on the tripartite review, and then you would get a message within the system, and it would come through to your tasks here to say you've got a tripartite review to sign, comment. Okay, so everything that we want you to do within the system as a line manager will come through your tasks here. You've got a lovely little messaging system also. It works exactly the same way as Outlook does, but if you want to keep everything within the system for audit tracking purposes, You can create messages. You can send messages to the people that you have access to or you're working with. You can send to your apprentices, and you could also send to the lecturers, the tutors within your remit. And these messages are all stored, they're all saved so that you can use for audit. So your messaging and your tasks is how we will keep track of what communication we're having with our apprentices. Okay, so you've got a little report section here. So if you've got 10, 15 apprentices or just one, you can pull some different reports off. And you've also got access to the resource centre, and you've also got access to our help centre. So don't sit and, you know, oh, how do I get to there? What do I want to look at this? If there's nobody available from the college, or you're not confident in clicking around the system, you can go into the help centre, and we've got a lovely live chat. It's not on at the moment, it's only on between 9 and 4 every day. It's not a bot, it is our team back in the Manchester office answering all of your questions, and you can also search your way through some of our user guides, and you can submit a ticket if you would like some help. Okay, so that's the help centre. So most importantly, I want to have a look at the progress of my apprentice or my apprentices. So when I am logged in and I come down to here, I've got an apprentice dashboard here. If I just open that up, I can see my apprentices, and I can see my progress, my current against my target progress. I can see if there's a deviation. So this learner is at 14%, slightly working below target, but it was just to give you an overview and see how progress is mapped within the system. We haven't scheduled any progress reviews, but once they are scheduled, they will all sit under this section here. Okay, so I'm just going to go into the learner. So when I go into my learner, I can see everything that my learner is working towards. Okay, so sorry, I'm too quick. I can see all of the information. And I can see that my learner is on the logbook for level 2, level 3. They're working towards the functional skills and the backs, as Chris mentioned earlier. So you can see the progress is at 0 for the functional skills and the backs. We're just waiting to update the functional skills. If learners working towards, and we're keeping the system up to date, your current progress should match your target progress. With your backs, that will only be completed at the end of each year or at the end of the apprenticeship. So your 35% against the 41% is learners achieved, completed some of their assessments, some of their knowledge, etc. over the duration of the apprenticeship to date. Your overall progress here takes into consideration all of the learning aims. Okay, so this learner that we're currently looking at has got 5 pending assessments. The way that the progress actually works in OneFile is, if I've set, so as the tutor, if I've set my apprentice some tasks to do, they will always sit within this pending area here. Okay, and it's only at the point of sign off by both the apprentice and us as the tutor that progress will move. So as soon as these 5 assessments are signed off, learner progress will change, and you'll be able to see that progress will be more accurate. Once the learner moves into the period of backs, which is this here, you should start to see the progress move. Progress is pulled from start and end dates and the amount of assessments that we assign to our apprentices. Okay, any questions on progress? Where they are in the learning journey towards their apprenticeship, the achievement of their apprenticeship. It'll be duration based. And if you look at it as performance based as well, so if we think about this learner's got 5 pending assessments that's waiting to be completed, it might be that the start date for some of these assessments is in the future, but they're still sitting there. As soon as that's signed off, the performance against the feedback and the how they've achieved those assessments will have an impact on their progress. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Your target is where they should be today, which is pulled from that duration of the start and end dates relating to the amount of outstanding assessments. This is actually, so your learner is actually 35, so he's on target. You've got your system set up. The system's set up with a 10% tolerance. So your learner is actually within that 10% of where the learner should be. Okay, thank you. So, no more questions on progress. If I just move on to the tripartite review, I'm not going to go into the tripartite review, because obviously there's information in there about learners, etc. Your tripartite review will sit in this area here that you've got view apprentice. Is that okay? When the progress review is scheduled, you will get a notification as the line manager, employer, to say a review has been scheduled. Okay? You will carry out the tripartite review. The form that sits behind that section will be filled in, and then you will get a notification for you to sign that off with comments. Okay? So once that's all set up, you will be able to log into OneFile. You can log in on your phone, a tablet, desktop, and you can look at your learner's progress, any reviews that are coming up, and comment and sign. So that's how the progress reviews will work moving forward. As Chris said, it's a process that they're embedding and moving towards in the next few months. So any questions on your progress review? Yeah.
Is that something that my email address, do I have to have this open on my system?
No, you don't have to have it open at all. What will happen is, underneath your name here, in this section here, and I'm not going into it, the email address will be sitting within there, and we'll set it up that when a progress review is due, so your email address will sit behind that section, and you'll get a ping to your personal work, college email address. Any updates for an employer. Okay, so a couple of weeks ago, we actually introduced a new feature called a magic link for employers. Exactly, I don't want this thing open all the time. I'm busy. I'm a one-man band, or so when you're actually carrying out the tripartite review now, there's actually just a button that says send magic link to employer. So you will literally just get a link to your phone or your desktop, and you would just click onto it and sign. Well, you get a verification code first, and then you would just sign. And the reason why we've done that is to make it easier for you, for the line managers, employers, because you're off, you might be in a nursery, you might be up a scaffolding somewhere. So it was just to try and make the tripartite process a bit smoother and easier for you. And just finally, you've got a little report section here. Again, you might never use the report section. Some of the features that you won't use, some of the reports you won't use, but if you wanted to go in and just look at your apprentices on that report there, if you've got 3, 4, 5, you can just click into that, pull that report off. and it will give you a full reading of where your apprentices are, their progress, etc., what reviews have been completed or are outstanding. Any questions? Any thoughts?
So,
There is an app. Yeah, absolutely, there is an app. What we'll do is, what I tend to do with my customers is, and once we're confident and we've got you all logged in and in the system, I just share Teams with myself, and I'll just do you a 2 or 3 minute short video that we can share with you that you can refer back to. Because obviously, you know, showing you this evening, and it might be a couple of weeks before you get to log in, you know, we do forget. But I'll do you a short little recording that you can refer back to. Thank you.
okay. The key element for me, obviously, in terms of implementing OneFile is that visibility for you as employers of your apprentices' progress. And it's not just that. Actually, what we're doing is we're missing a trick, because learning does not just take place in college, it takes place in the workplace as well. And we talk about off the job being at college, on the job being with you guys, but actually there are so many missed learning opportunities that could expedite an apprentice's progress. And what we are keen to do is to work in collaboration with employers, you know, and we believe that this package is going to provide us with a vehicle to do that. This will become your diary. So for the I won't call us old hands, Miles, but actually, you know, for me, when I did my apprenticeship all those decades ago, and you were only a couple of years back, but you know, actually all those decades ago, we had those apprenticeship diaries, and a couple of my colleagues in the audience, I'm looking towards the back there, you know, will remember those as well. But actually, this will provide the chronology behind the learning. I know what Nick didn't touch on, but actually you can see the learning aims. We won't go in, you know, so it was an individual's portfolio. So obviously, you know, we didn't want to breach any GDPR, but we can go down individual learning aims. So you can see what the apprentice is expected to cover, when they're going to do it, where it's phased in their learning. And actually, we've done an extensive piece of work with teams over the last 12 months and over the last year to actually ensure that the programme schedules that we produced, and last year when I said in this forum, guys, you all know about programme schedules, and there was lots of blank looks, and I was like, anybody know about programme schedules? Show of hands. It's like a couple of people. Yeah, you know, we've put the programme schedules there. They're online now. This is it. So there's a lot of data and information that goes in behind the apprenticeship to ensure that that tracking and all the key dates are hit. If an apprentice falls ill, or if they fall off the radar, we implement a break in learning now. So if there's a legitimate reason, so they may have broken their leg, they're out of learning for 6 weeks or whatever, you know, we'll put a break in learning in place. So that will impact on their end date. That will get updated in OneFile. The progress tracking will be in line with that. All right. I think in terms of, yeah, there's the opportunity. It depends on what the requirements are of the curriculum areas. And again, part of us shaping the tripartite reviews, we've got a working party now looking at that. Yeah. And there's different requirements for different areas. If I use carpentry as an example, carpentry have 69 apprentices, there or thereabouts. So for Jack and Tom to get out there 3 times a year is a bit of a, you know, a bit of a nightmare, logistical nightmare, because actually they're still doing teaching. So it's horses for courses. I know for hair, obviously in horticulture, they do that effectively, but we've got smaller numbers. So what we're doing is looking at a caseload basis. The tripartite review needs to involve the employer, the apprentice, and obviously the training provider. And we think that's best coming from the curriculum team, but we recognise probably one face-to-face per year, maybe one, you know, you can Teams in, we've got technology, let's use it. It could be a phone call, a recorded phone call. So I'm just giving you a ring, got the apprentice with you, you know, a quick touch base, or sent through the tripartite review. You're happy to review it, we can share it with the apprentice, all parties sign, that's it, it's job done. So we launched tripartite reviews last year with a gold standard. I'll put my hands up to that, it was a step too far. We've backed it off, we've simplified the form a heck of a lot. Yes, we want to make it more user friendly, more succinct. But actually, let's get used to it. Let's learn to walk before we run as employers, and obviously the training provider. I think it's the right vehicle for us to use actually to capture that, to build that relationship, rather than you guys, excuse me, ringing up and saying, what about, where's my report? The apprentice report is only as good as the time that it's written. It might not make it to you until it's like, say, worst case, 3-4 weeks down the line, by which the data's out of date. This is real time, this is live. You've got that, okay, you might get a report, but actually you don't know whether that progress is in line with expectation. So hopefully this will work. But, please, it's an open dialogue, it's an open channel of communication. Feel free to feed back to us. Okay, a couple more things from me. English and maths, we've touched on it, Jeff touched on it. I mentioned it earlier on, I just want to seek clarification over that. In England, in the UK, across the water, if an apprentice does not achieve English and maths at the functional level required, which is a grade 4 or a C, they will never ever get their technical certificate for their apprenticeship. They will never ever get their apprenticeship. Now, we conducted quite extensive engagement with employers last year. We went out with every sector body. Some sectors want it, other sectors don't. And what we're saying is where sectors want it, it will be an exit criteria. So by the end of the apprenticeship, apprentices should be functional, depending on the level of their apprenticeship, at either a 4 or a C. So if it's a level 3 apprenticeship, they need to be functional at level 2, which is GCSE standard. All right. English and maths attendance is mandatory, and I want to make that fact broadly known. If an apprentice is going to achieve on programme, if we expect them to achieve in line with target, they need to be functionally literate and indeed numerate. We want them to be able to write, we want them to be able to add up. And I can stand here in front of you, having struggled with English, it was, believe it or not, probably because I'm left-handed, more likely to stammer, but actually mathematically I had a logical brain, that worked for me, but actually English was not my strong point. It's about developing those skills and actually taking them forward in my future career, and obviously they served us all well. So we want every apprentice to be functional in English and maths. It aids their learning. We've had a load of problems in the past where we've never implemented an entry criteria, but this is why we've got skill scans, we've got initial assessments, and as Jeff said, if an apprentice is not capable of operating on programme through those initial skill scans, we'll have to provide them with an alternative pathway, or what we will do is we will front load their apprenticeship. We'll say, right, you're not coming on mainstream programme at this minute in time, you're going to have to build up those English and maths skills in order to function. That is particularly relevant in engineering, engineering trades, electrical, carpentry and joinery, where you've got measuring, you've got setting out, some elements of construction as well. And indeed, every course, it's on a course by course basis. So the element behind that is a key takeaway is obviously it's a mandatory requirement. If the apprentice does not attend English and maths, it impacts on their overall attendance statistic. If their overall attendance statistic falls below a threshold, it will result in the apprentice being subjected to disciplinary processes, because obviously we expect them to attend, and ultimately if their attendance does not improve, then obviously they will be removed from programme. The other element is obviously for those people that obviously apply for and are successful in gaining funding support. Funding support is directly proportional to the apprentice's attendance on programme. So if they are not attending English and maths and their attendance statistic drops, then obviously it's going to impact on the financial subsidy that you might get. Any questions on that one? Okay. Right, very good question. So again, in terms of on a case-by-case basis, so we're delivering it at a level below the level, and we've had discussions primarily if we're thinking about hospitality supervisors and such like. So we've had quite a high intake of speakers of other languages, and again what we're doing is we're working with the English and Maths team to say what is realistic. So we will continue to deliver skills. We're not saying it will be an exit criteria, because we've also got to consider the duration of that programme as well. So if we've got a 12-month apprenticeship, there is no way we're going to get an apprentice for English and Maths. In essence, if you're in the UK, that apprentice would maybe do that programme, continue studying English and Maths, and only when they've achieved it would they get their apprenticeship certificate. We cannot legally withhold the technical certificate. So if they get the technical certificate in hospitality supervisor, we'll expect them to continue studying towards English and Maths to develop those skills, and hopefully their functionality will increase. All right. Okay. The O word, colleagues will rue this one. We're still waiting for it. Some of you know about Ofsted. Ofsted is the inspecting governing body in the UK, and obviously we will be subject to an Ofsted inspection. We firmly believe it's going to come this term, but then we were believing that all last year. It is impending. We're all on tenterhooks. When Ofsted comes on Ireland, they will be contacting you as employers, and they will be asking you questions. All they'll ask from me is, can I have a list of employer names? We'll give them a list of employer names. We'll share them with you, and obviously the details, the phone numbers, emails, and you may get a cold call saying, hi, this is so-and-so. I'm an Ofsted inspector currently inspecting the Guernsey Institute College. I'd like to speak to you about your apprentice. And obviously in terms of it, they may also visit you on your premises to come and see the apprentice and have a word with them. And they discuss with you the curriculum that we deliver. So again, some types of questions that you may be asked. Obviously, they'll be keen to understand your interaction with the college, whether you're informed about your apprentices, your progress or whatever, whether they're making progress in line with expectation, and also whether they're acquiring the skills. And we've talked about BACS: behaviour, attitudes, knowledge and skills that obviously the apprentice is developing as part of their apprenticeship, both on the job with you and off the job with us. Again, they may ask what training you've provided and how it links with the skills they're developing at college. All right, so just a heads up, guys. Obviously, I'd appreciate your support in that one. If you do get a call, obviously, answer the questions candidly, be open and honest, and hopefully we get some good feedback. Right. In terms of new apprenticeships, I've mentioned career launch already with our office administration, different mode of delivery. We've got beauty therapy possibly coming on stream from September 24. Also in the pipeline, we've got project management. So we are open and receptive. If any of you think I could really do an apprenticeship, in this kind of subject area, we have got the capability and the flexibility to actually devise our own programs, providing we can append a qualification to it. We've seen that with the Ireland Operative. We've got these other apprenticeships in the pipeline. We're also looking at facilities management as an option. And again, if we're there to meet local needs, so please come and talk to us. Right, in terms of, I just want to touch on some of the headlines from last year. We are keen that our apprentices take place in competitions, and actually last year, this is construction based, but I know that both construction and hair and beauty, and if any other colleagues want to shout out of any other competitions that we took part in, please let me know. But obviously Skills Build UK is a nationally recognised competition. We went up to Preston to take part, and obviously we took some carpenters with us, we took some trowel trades guys with us, and some joinery guys. Clem Le Palais obviously won the regional heat, which was tremendous. And obviously we've got Jordan Meacham in joinery there coming second. So this was a significant, obviously that region, what we say, northwest. Am I good in my geography? Jeff's nodding, thank God. Northwest region, obviously, of the UK, quite a large field, very capable people. But again, Guernsey was at the forefront up there. So well done to those guys. Again, I know it's carpentry, and the carpentry department really excel in putting their guys forward. So this is a carpenter's craft competition. You will see this is a national competition for all professional carpenters. And again, under 20s, you can see Michael Kirk there from Guernsey College, and obviously in the over 20s, Jordan Meacham again, and indeed Clem Le Palais, both second and fourth. So runner-up nationally. So again, what we're doing is right. The skills, the behaviours, attitudes, knowledge and skills that we're giving apprentices in that area are right. We can compete at a national standard, and strategically for me and along with other colleagues, we are keen to take part in other competitions nationally. I appreciate the support you give us as employers as well to facilitate the opportunity for apprentices to do that. Don't say it's that duplicate. In addition to that, hair and beauty, we took our apprentices to Jersey to take part in a competition over there, and they all fared very well. And I think it was character building anyway. I think it was one of the phrases you used. Some of our guys that maybe hadn't been off Ireland before, taking part with colleagues from Jersey, that obviously served them in good stead. Our surveys of apprentices, and we survey our apprentices quite regularly, 3 times per year. We've got to get milestones, 3-month post-completion, 6-month post-completion, and 12-month post-completion. That 92% were employed in the same sector 1 year after leaving the college. there is obviously a slight decline, and I know that as employers you will know that actually the number of apprentices maybe remaining with their employer is not as good as it should be. So that was sitting around the 75%, with 25% dropping off or moving on to new opportunities. And obviously, you know, that regulation, the regulation of trying to maintain your workforce, sits with the employer as to what clauses you put in your contracts about, you know, redemption clauses should they leave within certain timeframes. But we're keen to support you with that. From my perspective, it's great to see that 100% of our apprentices, including Miles and myself, would recommend an apprenticeship to another student, wouldn't we? So that's good. So that's some good headlines there. On the horizon, folks, there is a rebrand impending. You will notice that we haven't mentioned the Guernsey College of Further Education tonight. We are the Guernsey Institute. We are formed as the Guernsey Institute, and actually a core pillar of the Guernsey Institute is TGI Apprenticeships. That's our new logo. It's designed to represent a building. Quite why it's orange, I don't know, but I quite like it. It's growing on me. It's taking some time. Jack and Tom will probably build a roof on that, yeah, and whatever, Tom might build an extension. Yeah, there's lots of moving of heads going on. So you'll see some of the new paperwork coming out with this brand on it. Obviously, the Guernsey Apprenticeship will still maintain its identity, because the Guernsey Apprenticeship is a regulatory framework providing the apprenticeship provision. TGI Apprenticeships will be our training provider through the Guernsey Institute College. All right. Right. That's about me. Our teams are all here this evening. So again, it's been a long evening. I know that we said we try and expedite things. I'm not going to read through the names. Teams will muster outside. If you want to speak to any of them, hopefully you'll recognise them. If you need to be introduced to somebody from horticulture or early years or whatever, please come and see me and I will help you out. That's about it from me. Thank you all for attending. If there are any questions, I'm free. I can take them now, or indeed we can take them outside. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for coming along.